Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for Charitable Georgia. Brought to you by Bees Charitable Pursuits and Resources. We put the fun in fundraising. For more information, go to beescharitablepursuits.com. That's BEES charitablepursuits.com. Now, here's your host, Brian Pruett.
Good Fabulous Friday. It's another Fabulous Friday morning. And first of all, everybody, Happy New Year. This is the first show since for being back from the holidays in 2024. So I hope everybody had a great holiday season. And even though it's kind of nasty weather out there, it's still a Fabulous Friday. We've got two fabulous guests this morning. If this is your first time listening, Charitable Georgia is all about positive things happening in the community, whether it's a business, individual, or nonprofit. And I've got two guys. I'm like a little kid in candy store this morning. I got two guys in the studio. I get to call friends too, but they played professional sports. I get to dream about playing professional sports. So Nathan Bates, Kenny Graham Jr., thanks for being here this morning.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
So, Nathan, we'll start with you just for a second. You currently work with CMIT Solutions in Marietta, but you played college ball at Georgia State, and then you went on to play in the Angels organization and played professionally in Mexico. So share a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
I moved a lot when I was younger. My dad was, in corporate sales jobs, so bounced around quite a bit. And then went to high school down in the Peachtree City, Fayetteville area. Went to Stars Mill down there, and then, like you said, 3 years at Georgia State. As a pitcher, playing baseball and pitching, was drafted by the Angels in the 15th round, and was bouncing around the minor leagues, traveling all over the place doing that, and having fun doing it, until it wasn't fun anymore after about 8 years. Got engaged, getting ready to get married, had some other things going on, and priorities had changed, so it's time to take a different direction there, but loved every second of the playing career. And like you said, now I'm in IT sales for a company called CMIT Solutions. We do IT for small, medium-sized businesses up in the Cobb, Douglas, and Paulding County areas, but, really anywhere in metro Atlanta. So, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I've played in a couple of golf tournaments that you've invited me to, a couple of charity scrambles, been on a panel to talk, and whether it's, giving back and having a conversation or donating money, it's just a lot of fun to be involved in everything you do, and happy to be invited to do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, and we'll get back to you in just a second. So, Kenny Graham Jr., you also played pro ball. You were with the White Sox for a while, and then you actually spent 1 year in arena football until the nasty COVID thing hit. But
right, absolutely.
Give us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
So originally from Lawrenceburg, North Carolina. Born, my mom and dad, they actually still happy married. They actually just celebrated 32 years of marriage last week. I did my undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University. Had a degree in computer engineering and a minor in public speaking. I actually wasn't drafted. I was an undrafted free agent. At that time, they had something called the American Baseball Institute down in Clearwater, Florida at the Phillies spring training complex. And it was like an institute for guys who got overlooked in the draft or guys who got released. And I went down there for a tryout, me, my dad, and my uncle. I just happened to run like a 6'4", 60. I topped out at 110 miles an hour from the outfield, left-handed. And then I took BP. My BP sucked, literally. I was so nervous. I was 19 years old, so I was nervous, and it was over 600 guys at this tryout. And everything, we had 10 swings, and everything I hit my back, hit the tarp, and went back into the screen. And I looked at my dad and my uncle. I said, yo, they're sending me home. Like, I'm not coming back, because the next day was like the inter-squad day. And I was like, Dad, I'm going home, man. My BP sucked. So the next day it rained out. So we had like an off day. So we go back the next day, and they called the names out for the inter-squad games. And they said Kenny Graham Jr. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
You hit 110 from the outfield, run a 6'4".
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's exactly what they told me, because I asked, I said, did y'all not see my BP? They was like, nah, you looked a little uncomfortable up there. So make a long story short, they said we wanted to see what you look like in game-like situations, so they can't really determine off of a little tryout style. So I ended up going 3 for 4, 2 bombs and a double, made some plays in the outfield, some diving plays, man. And I had a representative from the Chicago White Sox in Dominican Republic out of Boca Chica. He literally came up to me and said, hey, we want you. I was like, I've never been out of the country day in my life. You know, I'm a spoiled little boy from North Carolina. I love my mom and dad. Like, I'm still in school. So I ended up like leaving A&T for that year. I moved to DR for that summer. I played in Dominican Summer League, played for the Los Típicos with Robinson Cano's father was our GM, Jose Cano. Jose Cano. And then I ended up staying there for like a whole year. And I played Winter League over there as well. And then that's literally how my whole career started. I bounced around in the minors for a little bit, tore my knee. I got married at 24 years old, so I'm 34 now, so I got a little younger.
Happens a lot with baseball players.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? We got my previous wife, she had 3 kids before me, so I took care of them as my own once we got together, and then we have our 7-year-old daughter together. So I got 4 kids, you know what I mean? So basically what happened once I got hurt in 2017, I just, I tried to bounce around, said bump baseball. And like you said, you mentioned arena football. So I started training for arena football down in Tampa. I went down there. A matter of fact, I reached out to the guy that trained me on email. And I said, hey man, I play pro baseball. I'm tired of baseball. Don't want to look at it. I want to play football. I got a lot of anger and aggression. I want to hit somebody. Can you train me?
I haven't been able to do it in
right.
baseball.
There you go. I was like, can you train me? So they emailed me back and said, fortunately, we can do it. I was like, oh, okay. So it was a little expensive. It was like $2,200 a week that I spent. But I was like, I told my wife at the time, I said, look, I got to go for a couple weeks. Make a long story short, man, I did NFL combine training. Totally different. So I got a whole nother respect for NFL players. Football players, totally different. The first day warm up, I felt like I was about to die. Just in the warm up.
Yeah.
We didn't even do speed and agility, not even training yet. It was just the warm up.
Wow.
My lower back was tight. So after the first week, I was fine. And then I met some good NFL guys, some Buccaneers guys. At that time, arena ball is right around spring training. So when the Yankees guys came in, I got to meet CeCe Sabathia and all them boys. So they was training there too. And then the Tampa Tornadoes had a tryout. And I went to the tryout. Now, mind you, I'm a little flashy. So I pulled up to the tryout in a drop top BMW. Okay. I was like, yeah, I'm going to show out. And my trainer was with me. So I'm the only guy that walks in with a trainer. So now everybody's looking at me. So I'm like, I got to show out. So make a long story short, man, we ended up doing the L drill. I did good on there. And then we had to run the 40 and I ran a 4.45. And after I ran that, one of the owners was like, yo, get his number right now. And he comes, so the player developer, he was like, I had my college shirt on. And he said, man, you went to A&T? I said, yeah, I did. He said, when'd you graduate? I said, man, it's 2011. He said, wait. You play in the NFL? I said, nah. He said, you play football, right? I said, I ain't never played football a day in my life. He said, what you do? I said, I used to play pro baseball. He was like, not looking like that. And I said, yeah, man. I said, I've always been a football guy. I just never played it. My dad wouldn't let me. So he was like, man, I'm going to send you a contract tonight. To make a long story short, I get home, back to the hotel. I check my Facebook. I get a friend request from both owners, the player developer, and the head coach, and the starting quarterback. And they messaged me and said, you're getting a contract tonight. I looked over it. My wife and I at the time went to Vegas, celebrated, signed it on Facebook Live. Boom, played arena football, and then COVID happened.
Especially after not having done it previously. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. I played defense. I played defensive end, too.
As soon as you said, I mean, you got to have some kind of physicality to throw 110 from the outfield, too. I mean, I do, but mine's just leverage. I don't have that strength that you got, but you run a 6'4". Yeah. There's some other sports that are going to come knocking and be like,
yeah.
Right.
Now, I'll be transparent. If I knew what I knew now, especially at baseball, because I'm a lefty, if I knew what I knew now, I would, because when I was in college, I was like 96 off the mound with no mechanics. But I got to respect you, too, because y'all did a lot of conditioning. And when I used to see the conditioning in college, I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I don't know how to swim at that time. So we making pitchers doing swimming workouts in the pool.
Which is the best thing you can do health-wise to keep your arm. I mean,
I believe it.
Great, but... So when I turned 10, I stopped swimming. My sister was an All-American swimmer in college, Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
And I swam for a couple years. And when I was 10, I was like, this is worse than running because all you're doing is going back and forth.
Right.
Except for, you could drown. And my arm never felt better, but I was like, it's still not worth it.
So I read a story about Lenny Dykstra. Now, it wasn't swimming, but he was in the pool. And, Lenny Dykstra was a switch hitter. And what I read was he took 100 swings from both sides underneath the water with the bat.
I do that.
Surprise me. Yeah. Because just a way to get resistance without putting any stress on anything, any joints or anything like that, which is why it's so great for pitchers, because all they do, you can only throw so many pitches off the mound. You can take a lot more swings, not unlimited, but you can take a lot more. It's not like going to a gym and shooting a basketball. You can't just stay there for 8 hours and get shots up. I mean, there's a limit. So being able to add some of that work in without putting the stress on your body is really good if you can do it. But again,
that's old school.
If you can do it, if you can do it, it's not worth it to me.
So I got lots of questions. So hang on for the ride.
All right.
I'm sure we're both used to it.
Right.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to do this. So you guys, again, like I mentioned, have done some things with me for fundraisers, and I've started my business of Bees Charitable Pursuits and Resources, doing community fundraising. And like you said, Nathan, you've recently done some golf tournaments, and we did the locker room chat. And Kenny, it was a while ago, but you came out to the thing we did in 2015. Can you believe it's been that long?
I had just moved here in 2014.
Yeah.
And I got drafted in 2015.
Really? Oh, man. Dang, I got you by a long side of age. You make me feel old, man.
So our mutual buddy Eric Green's one that got us connected.
Yeah.
But we did the thing when Skip Wells. So we did the trivia night for his,
Man, 25th, I was 25 years old, big dog. Dang, I've been in Georgia that long. That's crazy.
Yep. So first of all, I just appreciate you guys coming out and giving back to the community. Nathan, this is going to start with you with this question. So obviously playing sports and being in professional sports, while you may not have had the name in the major leagues, but you still were professional. Just give me a reason why it's important for you to be part of the community now.
Well, I think a lot of it was like the culture, or whatever sport it is, in the locker room, and you get that camaraderie with the team, and you build a lot of really good relationships, and that's half of the fun of, in my opinion, of at least baseball, if not most professional sports, is that those relationships and that camaraderie and the culture you build in the clubhouse. And so that was one of the things when I retired. That was one of the things I realized I was missing. And the more I went out and was doing networking and doing sales and business development in our area, that was one of the things I realized that was, it was good to me on a selfish level, because I got to, build more relationships, get to know some really good people, and expand, network. And since we're new to the Marietta area, getting to go around in a lot of places like that. But giving back was a really, really important to me, because the more I think about it, there's so many people that helped me get where I am. And without almost any one of them, I wouldn't have gotten there. And so even if it's just something small, you never know when you're going to say something about a sport and, oh, yeah, my son plays baseball. Could you talk to him? Even if it's a 5-minute conversation, I still answer the phone every time my high school pitching coach picks up, because I know it's always because he's got a student with him or a kid with him, a high school player. And he asks me a question that he knows the answer to, but he just wants the kid to hear a professional baseball player or former professional baseball player say it. So it's important to me just because of one way or another, there's a lot of ways to give back. And a lot of people did that for me when I was younger. And it's extremely important for me to do what I can to do the same thing, however that, looks.
All right. Kenny, how about you?
I'm actually in the same boat with him, man. I'm all about giving back, especially the environment that I grew up in. So like I said, if you don't know too much about Laurinburg, North Carolina, we're actually ranked number 1 most dangerous place to be in the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
And I mean, when I tell you, we're beating Charlotte, and Charlotte is extremely big. Excuse me, but my hometown's 1 high school, 3 middle schools. At that time, we had 5 elementary schools. You know what I mean? So, but the way the time is now, there's nothing to do for the community, nothing to do for the youth. And it's almost kind of like, man, if you don't get out, you're stuck. So it's like when I go back home and I see people that I graduated high school with that's 34, 35 years old, and they're looking like they're in their 50s and stuff now, it's kind of sad to me, because at the end of the day, they probably didn't get that opportunity like I did. And again, it's about networking. I'm a relationship person. I'm just really big on developing great relationships, not burning bridges. So I feel like being in the community, like you said, you're going to have a lot of individuals that get to see you. You will have somebody who say, like you said, I want to play sports, I want to play baseball, or just somebody that say, you know what, this is somebody that's been through something and look where they are now. You know what I mean? And they use baseball or another sport or even a business to use that as a platform to get to where they're at now. So like I say, it's very pivotal that you are in the community as much as you can. That's one thing I hated about COVID, because I had so much I was going to do in the city of Tampa, Florida. My spiritual advisors there, like I said, the Tampa Tornadoes football team, especially in the rural areas. I wanted to do so much, doing that. And then man, I just hate COVID happened, but things happen for a reason. But again, being connected in the community is very pivotal for me. Yeah.
You guys both mentioned it, and so it's a good segue because I always ask this too. So you both talked about networking, and Kenny, you're right on. It's all about relationship building, right? Most people come in networking if they're new to networking and they try to sell, and that's not the way to do it. You got to learn about the other person and build that relationship. So let me start with you, Kenny, because you're now training kids, right?
Right.
Do you get to do much networking now?
Absolutely, I do, because I'm gonna be honest. A lot of people ask me what I do.
You train baseball or football?
Baseball.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's be transparent. I can't do younger kids.
Oh, bro, I get it.
High school,
especially pitching.
Yeah, high school. I'd rather do college at least. You know what I mean, and then just do pro guys. But high school is my limit. But again, I get to network a lot because of the fact that a lot of people ask what I do, like for work now. And I'm like, I just chill, you know what I mean? Just because of, the relationships I had, and God's kind of put me in a position to where I don't have to, punch a clock anymore, and I can just march to the beat of my own drum. So I do have a lot of time to network. And again, being in the Milton and Alpharetta area, it's so many baseball guys out there.
Yeah.
So many. Like, I didn't know that Dexter Fowler went to Milton High School, and I live across
big names in that area.
Right. And I live right across the street from Milton High School. You know what I mean? We was talking about baseball facilities in the area, Chris Buchek is at Precision. I coached at Precision a couple years ago.
Buchek was a coach in the Angels organization. Well, sorry, he played in the Angels organization and then coached at Georgia State as the pitching coach when I was still going back in the offseason. So I know Chris really well.
You know what I mean? Him, and then I'm real good friends with Ryan Vogelsong.
I know Vogelsong.
Yeah, just because of the fact that I coached travel ball with the Bombers. So Ryan Snare.
I almost never have a conversation with a baseball player where it's like, this guy's like, oh, yeah. Never has happened where it's like, nope, don't know any of those guys.
Well, I mean, you're both you North Carolina, but local growing up, right? And he's still now here. So
and East Cobb baseball is nationwide, even though it's in very local to, I live right next to Sprayberry now, and Sprayberry is 5A, but still not really a powerhouse in terms of baseball. And there's all kinds of other high schools up here, along with, what is it? North Point now is that other facility up there that's not as big as East Cobb, but it's getting there. And so this is a hot spot in the country for sure.
Right. So Kenny, let me ask you this. Do you have a positive story you can share about networking that's kind of helped you?
Positive story about networking. Oh man. Okay. I could be positive networking. Let's go back to Ron Vogelsong. All right. I'm to the point where I'm good friends enough to call him Vogie, his nickname. And basically, again, I use my public speaking skills and my baseball background to talk to Vogie, right? So I'm coaching his son. He played on my 13U team with the Bombers last year. And, he spoke to me on the phone when I asked him, did he want to play for me? Because, it was my first year with the Bombers. So I was kind of new to the organization, but a lot of the kids were already on the Bombers, but they was going through transitions as well as far as coaching-wise. So I definitely had to win all the parents over. So I'm talking to Vogie, and he let me know, hey, this is who I used to play for and everything. And I'm like, wait, I'm on the phone with a World Series champion. Like, his statue was outside of the San Francisco Giants stadium. And this man's telling me he trusts my coaching with his son. So I'm like, I got to make sure I come correct. So I was not doing no starstruck or try to be like buddy type just because of who he is. I just kept it honest. And I guess my networking and the way I kept it honest with him, he felt comfortable enough to come to me about his frustrations with his son, because he expects his son to be a certain type of way because of who he was. And he felt comfortable enough to, talk to me, and I was able to build that bond with him and be like, hey man, it's okay. Like, let your son, break out on his own time. He's not you. Well, just because of that relationship and that networking I did, now he's spoken to the front office with the San Francisco Giants, and they've picked up my resume. And there's an opportunity in the fall and the off season of 2024 that I can get the outfield coordinator job.
Oh, wow.
With the Giants, which is one of my goals. So that's a positive thing for me.
And that's not usually something that someone just comes right into. Usually you got to be in the system and get promoted. Even as the coaching side of things, it's very similar.
Yeah. So it's just like I said, just for me, just being who I am. That's another thing too about networking. Be authentic.
Yep.
Be your true self. Don't try to be nothing you're not. And then at the end of the day, if that's what God wants for you to happen, that relationship is going to happen. And like I said, it's not concrete, but the fact that he even thought of me to, ask for my resume, send it to the front office. And on top of that, they just gave him the job to be the special assistant to the GM for this season. So, you know what I mean? But
well, you just talked about not being starstruck. Now, look, I'm going to tell a little story on myself. So one of the things that I did back, I worked for, I won't name the company because it was not a good thing, but the best thing that came out of it was I got to meet a lot of you guys, the former athletes, right? And I maintained those relationships. And I always tell somebody sends me a text or somebody calls me and I look down and it's one of you guys. I'm like, well, I seriously like a little kitty candy store. And then what's up, man? So, all right, Nathan, what about you? You and I do a lot of networking in some of the same groups, but how about you? What kind of story can you share positive about networking?
There's a lot of positives that have come out of networking. And a lot of times, again, there was probably a couple months in between the end of my baseball career and the beginning of, I would say, my real world job of, sales for an IT company. And I realized very quickly that even though at first it felt like I was tooting my own horn to stand up and say, hey, I played professional baseball for 7 years. But every time I did that, there was literally a line of 4 or 5 people waiting to talk to me after the networking event. And so finding a way to kind of not try to look like I'm puffing my chest out when I say it, but realizing that adds a lot of value and it creates a lot of credibility for me. And so there's a lot of times where people have come up and it's like, hey, I know you probably don't do this a lot anymore, but my kid's 8 or, he really wants to be a baseball player. Is there anything you can tell him? And then it turns into the 30-minute conversation of, what sports does he play? How, what team is he on? What are his coaches telling him? All that stuff. And so for me, a lot of the positive is people, again, like you said, they see me at a networking event. All they hear me say, they hear me be honest and they can tell I'm being myself. And then they'll come up to me and ask me for my advice on how their kid, who, most parents love more than anything in the world, how they should approach their sports career. And to have that trust is that happens quite a bit, which is really great. But I will say that talking to people and having the conversation go from networking kind of into sports a little bit, and then kind of like we're doing right now, eventually it turns into, hey, do you know this person? Or do you know this person? Oh, I know somebody that I'd be great to connect you with. And so I've gotten some business doing that, which is great. It's not really if my boss is listening, yes, that's the reason, you want to get business, but I just want to build relationships with people and be able to help people however I can. So that's a lot of the positives, is really just the little things of kind of going off topic and people being like, hey, my son's 10 and he wants to get into pitching. I don't really know how to teach him how to throw a curveball. Can you do it? And I'm like, no, I'm not teaching your 10-year-old how to throw a curveball. I don't want him to hurt his arm. Right. And like you said, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you yes, just because I think that's what you want to hear. I was told not to, or I wasn't really allowed to play I wasn't allowed to play organized sports until I was like 10. No t-ball, nothing like that other than soccer, because soccer at that age isn't really the same thing as it is once you get older. And I hated it because all my friends were playing those sports. My parents would never let me. And now I get it. And so a lot of those conversations that I have with parents of athletes now, it kind of comes full circle. And so that's where most of the positive outcomes for me, outside of the obvious, building network or building relationships and having it, grow our business, is just the questions I get where, again, like Kenny said, people asking for advice on how they should coach and bring up their kid. Right. And it's really rewarding to help. But like the same thing he said, there's only so young with baseball that you can start training and teaching kids. And so there's a fine line. There's a lot of parents that want them to start when they're 6, because that's what all the East Cobb coaches are saying, that you got to start them now and they got to specialize because everybody's specializing now. And that's the only way they're going to get. So a lot of those conversations I get, that you can maybe kind of tell since you're in the room. I'm getting fired up about it a little bit right now, because pitching is so much different than other sports, and even playing a position and swinging a baseball bat. Right.
Yeah, that's what it is. Passion.
And like I said, I almost am shoot myself in the foot for being too transparent and too honest sometimes. But when it comes to networking, I refuse to change, because it works, and I feel more comfortable telling people what I truly believe, especially when it comes to, again, I'm going to relate it back to because I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, curveballs and sliders. How's my kid throw one? Your kid doesn't need to throw one. Right. And so that's just being able to really make those parents understand that, hey, this isn't the end of the world. They're 8 years old. A lot of that is mostly the positive experiences I have, but they're all over the place almost every day when I'm out, all the networking events that I go to and see you at, there's always somebody that, you know, some kind of conversation that's at least an uplifting conversation, if not, you know, a physical, tangible positive that comes from it. So,
well, most people, everybody's listening, so there's no cameras in here, so they can't see. But most people probably think you played basketball because you're how tall?
I do that. I'm 6'8". Yeah,
so,
I get that a lot.
When he walked in, I was like, yeah, he hoop. But I want to piggyback real quick though.
Go ahead.
When you said about, you know, not trying to pump your chest when you say you play professional ball, it's very therapeutic to hear somebody say that. Sometimes they say that's what they did, but not coming from a cocky standpoint.
Right.
Because I do that a lot. You know what I mean? But for me, when you, like, I'm 6'3", 265. So clearly I look like an athlete, especially because all I wear is athletic clothing.
Right. So
the question is going to be asked what it is that I did or what I do. Of course I would bring that up. And again, sometimes it's a great conversation starter as well.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you said, how that people look at you, but there's a lot of people who don't understand that neither. So, you know, I've been around a lot of people who will be like, oh, why you tell somebody you play this, or why you got to let somebody know that? And I was like, honestly, you don't understand.
I'm not doing it for people to think how awesome I am.
Right.
I'm not doing it for people to tell people how great I am. That's
right. And also, you don't understand some type of the conversations that can happen. Like, I'd be like, give you real quick. My wife and I, before we, you know, when we were together, we was on a cruise ship, man, back in like 2016, I think. And we did like an 8-day cruise. And of course, like I said, at that time I was really in shape, you know, walking around my shirt off and stuff. Right. So it was an older couple, and the guy was like, man, what do you do? Like, you play ball or something? And you ask, I'm not going to lie. So I'm like, yeah. So, you know, I play pro baseball, whatever. And, kid you not, next thing I know, I had a full like bottle of Louis Vuitton. I mean, Louis the 13th.
Louis 13th, yeah.
Yeah. It was sent to our stateroom. Literally. And I was like, where did this come from? Because I'm looking at my bill like, I'm not paying for this.
That's right.
So we go to dinner later on that night, and him and his wife comes up to us at the dinner table. He said, you like your gift? I was like, wait, that's from you? He was like, yeah, man. He said, I've never met a pro athlete before, and I love baseball. So I was like, oh, so this is what that title sometimes have. But again, it still opens up other type of avenues as well to people like, okay, look, what can I do? You know what I mean? Even if it's not from a sporting standpoint, they want to understand your mentality, and you can give them some mentality things to help them get to the next level that what they're trying to achieve. So that's why, it was just very therapeutic to hear you say like, okay, I say it sometimes, and I try not to say it like I'm sticking out my chest. And a lot of times when I do it, I'm not sticking out my chest, but I'm going to let you know I worked my behind off of this. So I throw that in there.
And they hear all the time like, oh yeah, it's a grind, and it is. And I mean, high school baseball is probably what people relate it to. And if they play college ball, it's the same thing. I played college ball. And it's just, college ball is hard too, because you have to balance the schedule, but it's just a whole nother beast. Mentally, it's just wearing.
Different level.
And the same thing when we'll be in public and someone will ask, I mean, like Brian said, I'm tall. And so someone will ask, oh, did you play basketball? And I say, no, I played baseball. And it kind of naturally turns to that. It's like, oh, where'd you play? That kind of thing. And then my wife will be like, why'd you have to tell him? Like, well, I know they didn't ask if I played basketball or baseball. But
Right.
They were looking at me like, you played something. So you're not getting away from me, you know? So I get it. And the longer I've been out of the game, the easier it is for me to say it without feeling like I'm sounding.
There's a difference between confident and cocky. And I think because again, now I grew up around sports. I played in high school. I went to a private school, so the only thing we had was basketball and volleyball. Believe it or not, we had a guys volleyball, so that's what I played, and I was manager for the basketball team. But I grew up around sports all my life. I went to Kennesaw State, worked in the athletic department. I was a sports writer for a while, and so I'm just a big fan. And I've dealt with guys who play professional sports who had the nose up and said, you know, they're better than you because they got to that level. And look, I mean, I'll be honest. My buddy Chad Blake. You're welcome, Chad. Angel Auctions. He was doing a silent auction for Marquise Grissom's golf tournament a few years ago. Okay. Pete Smith, you know, played for the Braves, came in with a little jersey that was for a 9-year-old boy whose mother had sent him the jersey asking for his autograph, but he knew he was coming to that. So he was trying to get all the other guys that were playing for the golf tournament signed. This little boy had cancer.
Okay.
I'm probably going to get shot if he hears this story, but I'm going to say it anyway because they say never meet your heroes. Bo Jackson was there and would not sign the jersey because he said, I'm not here to sign any memorabilia. And he was just, and he was so rude about it. And I'm like, all the other guys are signing.
Yeah.
This is for a little boy with cancer. Here's the letter from the mother. He just walked off. And as he's leaving, I tried one more time. He didn't even acknowledge it, and it's just, things like that is just, it's hard to see something like that when you're trying to do good in the community. And you guys, let's face it. Again, I could only dream about being professional. You guys made it, right? Even if you didn't make it to the big levels, you still were there. Yeah. So I think it's awesome that you guys come in here, and the majority of the guys that I hang around with and do things with and invite to are you guys that give back to the community and love doing it. Kevin's event, the locker room chat,
that was awesome.
There was 8 of you there, yeah. But you're talking about knowing about a professional athlete and asking. So last January, I take my mom to Kroger. We're in Ackworth. And you know how you cross people up and down the aisles, right, and everything? And this gentleman's walking up and down the aisle, and he's massive. Like, he's tall, but he's also built, right? And people think I'm crazy when I say this, but we're on the peanut butter aisle. He picks up the massive family jar of peanut butter and sticks it in his cart. And I looked back at my wife and my mom, and I said, he played something. Mm-hmm. We get behind him in the checkout line, so I go up to him, and my mom and my wife are just shaking their heads like you're being you. So I said, who'd you play for? He's like, he said, I played for the Patriots, the Panthers, the Chiefs, and then the BC Lions. And it's Stephen Williams, right?
Okay.
So, and then I got him to come to some events too after meeting him, because I told him what I did and he gave me his number, and I'm like, sweet, there's another one. Right? No, but it's just kind of cool, right? Because again, you guys are used to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Right.
But the fact that he took the time to talk, and we're in the checkout outline, so he's wanting to get out and everything, but he took to me and talked about it. So, all right. So I got a couple of, like I said, I got a lot of questions. So we talk about life on here as well as business. And, I'm going to ask a couple of things first. So before we get into that. So, Nate, you talked, you spoke at the, Morning Jolt and shared a story about, adversity and your complete turnaround on the thought. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. I thought you were going to say something about the Ronald Acuna story. I told you.
No, not unless you want to.
No, it's quick. No, there was a lot of things throughout, my college and professional career that were almost career ending for me and could have been. College, I got in trouble over the winter break my freshman year before the season even started. And out of 14 pitchers, I was the 14th one to get an inning that year. I was lucky to be on the team. But they gave me an inning in, I think it was the bottom of the 8th against Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. And the score was like 16-0. They had scored in every single inning that they had hit in. And so basically it was a Tuesday, and they didn't want to waste any of the pitchers that they usually use on the weekends. So they were like, hey, good luck. Go for it. Hopefully you can get out of it. And luckily 1 or 2 of them were pinch hitters, but I got 3 up, 3 down, and ended up getting a couple more opportunities, and played well from there. And then sophomore year something went wrong. I was pitching at Ole Miss and was topping out at 80 miles an hour. So took a couple weeks off and kind of fought through that. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I was drafted in the 15th round, was never really a huge prospect. Obviously, again, if you see me, I'm pretty tall, and that was, I was very late developing physically. And so that was all of the people that were looking at me were like, yeah, he's got a good frame. Once he puts weight on, he'll develop. And so that was most of my, my draw when I was in college. But between those 2 injuries, and then got lucky, got a chance to prove something when I got signed with the Angels. And then, right as things got going with the Angels, I was throwing a little bit harder. They'd moved me to the end of the bullpen, and then I had an elbow injury that was I didn't feel a pop like a lot of the guys that have the full Tommy John surgery feel. So they tried a PRP injection, which has been known to work on a lot of other parts of the body, joints, muscles, things like that, but not as much on the ligament in the elbow. That's just a very high stress, not a natural motion. And so it's less successful there. But it was recommended to me, and we tried it and ended up not working. Hindsight, it's 2020, but still can't look back and say I would have tried anything different. And had my Tommy John surgery, came back from that, and with a month left in the year, was pitching really, really well, throwing upper 90s, was consistent, felt as good as I had in my career. I was, 6'7", 6'8", 245. I put some weight on. I was really feeling good. And then the next year was COVID. So, I got invited to some big league spring training games, was pitching. That was when Joe Madden was our manager. I pitched in a game, threw okay, came out of the game. Joe Madden patted me on the butt and said, "Hey, we really like you. Keep it up." And the next day is when they sent everybody home for COVID. So they had an alternate site that they invited a lot of guys out to that year. I was not one of them, which was a real mental shot. Somewhere in the middle of the year there, I got what I thought was COVID, ended up testing negative, but was, lost 20 pounds. And so the whole time that year I was working out, trying to stay in shape in case they called me to be ready. And then I physically wasn't ready and getting towards the end of the year. And so even if they did call me, there was no way for me to be ready. And so that was a mental, real mind game, really. And it always felt like throughout the 8 or 9 years of me playing baseball, it was like right when I felt like I got going and got some momentum, something out of my control happened, to where I'd have to kind of take a step back and reevaluate and go from there. But, I've actually heard it a few times lately, and maybe that's, or recently I'll say this quote, and maybe it's a sign, but I've heard a few times in the last week, you make plans and you hear God laughing, and regardless of what you believe, I mean, you can make plans, you can have all this set and have all this lined up for what you want to happen, what you think is going to happen, and then one thing can throw it all off the rails. And there's plenty of that happened during my career, and it was not as quick of a learning process as it should have been, but just instead of saying, "Oh, woe is me," and "Oh, this isn't going to get to happen anymore," and maybe if some of that stuff hadn't happened, then maybe I would have gone a different route, and maybe I'd still be playing baseball. But that's not really something I think about a lot, because like I'd mentioned earlier, my priorities changed towards the end of my career once I got engaged, and now we have a house, and have the flexibility in my schedule to work from home, and we have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and I love the situation I'm in now. But if I hadn't had a lot of that adversity to kind of keep myself in check and keep that perspective at the front of my mind, then it could have gone very differently, and I could have still been thinking about that what if and not focusing on the here and now, and then who knows what could have happened. So there's all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure every athlete has very similar stories. I mean, we heard from Kenny earlier. It's there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and it's just up to you on how you respond to them. And so the first couple of times, maybe I didn't do what I should have, but it happens enough, and it's kind of the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So eventually I got to react differently. I got to do something else. I got to make the best out of this. So,
well, you shared somebody actually said something to you, right? One of the players. Oh
yeah. It was, it was one of, are you talking about during my surgery? Yeah. One of the players was a Dominican guy. He was a younger guy, and there were some guys complaining about, we're in Arizona, and there were some younger guys that weren't there for the same reasons I was there. I was, on a rehab assignment from AA, but still, in terms of perspective, there was this young guy that was really nice, spoke a little bit of English, and I would talk to him every once in a while. And he came up to me one day. He's like, it's really hard to hear these guys in not as good of English, but he was like, I don't like hearing these guys complain about their paychecks. I was like, yeah. It's frustrating. It could be a lot worse. And he was like, I don't even see my paychecks. I was like, what do you mean? You should definitely be seeing your paychecks. He's like, well, they're sent straight to the Dominican because I don't have a dad, and my mom is home, doesn't have a job, and my sister is young and has health issues, so I'm the provider. He's like, I don't, I have to, some of my friends pick up food for me, or the Angels will be nice and bring in some extra food. He's like, but, I don't even know how much I make. And after a good bit of reflection, because that'll hit you pretty hard when you're not expecting it. And so just thinking about that and the situation that I'm sure he had to, or was in now, and not even talking about the situation I'm sure he overcame to be where he was, just, again, that perspective is just, if you're not paying attention to it, it's easy to miss. But if you are able to take a step back and see the forest and not just the trees, it's that adversity actually, people say all the time, it's how you respond to it. But being able to have perspective, I think, helps you respond to adversity how you should, in a way that, is healthy, and not to where you can look back and say, oh, this should have happened. I mean, we're all in sports. We hear the guys that are like, oh, I would have gotten drafted if it wasn't from, our shortstop that was 2 years older than me at Georgia State had like a 890 fielding percentage as a shortstop.
Wow.
I won't say his name, even though he probably won't be listening. But, I mean, he, after his junior year, he was like, oh yeah, our head coach took my name off the draft board. I was like, that's not how that works. He can't do that.
Right.
The teams have to do that. Right. And so, I mean, you hear guys like that say things like that all the time, and it's having talked to some of those guys and having some of the other experiences, it's like, all right, that's enough of a reality check. Like, it could be a lot worse. I'm very happy with where I'm at. Don't get to that point.
Right.
So the adversity to me has just added a lot of perspective.
Right. All right. So since you brought it up, tell us the Ron O'Connor story.
Yeah. So I was in the fall league, which is a league for about a month and a half after the minor league season ends, that each organization asks about 5 or 6 people to go out and participate in. And there's 6 teams total, and each team is made up of about 5 organizations. And so the team that I was on was the Reds, the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, and us. I think that's everybody. But we were playing the team that had the Braves on it, and I was pitching, and Acuna comes up, and this is before he's in the big leagues, and I knew of him. He's a big prospect. He's a good athlete, and they had played our Double-A team in the minor league season that year. So I'd heard of him, and so I threw a couple of off-speed pitches and trying to get ahead and trying to get him not to swing at one. I didn't want to challenge him early, and so I threw a slider, 1-0, tried to get back at, even in the count with another slider, same spot, 2-0. I was like, okay, my ball moves a little bit. I'll try to get one, middle inside, because I'm sure he's looking to extend his arms, and I'll try to maybe get one back and try to sneak one inside on him since I went 2 away. And then it started away and ran back right where you'd ask for it to be if you were hitting batting practice in a home run derby. That's where it was. And don't look it up, because there's definitely not a video of this on YouTube. But he makes contact. I throw a fastball, he hits it, and he starts to watch it and kind of puts the bat down a little bit. And I put my head down and say a 4-letter word that you probably can't hear, but starts with an F. And then as soon as I turned around to see where the ball was, it was bouncing over the wall. So it got there in about a second flat, and luckily it was just a ground rule double. But yeah, he was the real deal, like everybody had said he was. And then sure enough, he was on second base, and the very first pitch, right as I lift my leg, he's 3/4 of the way to third base, stole third right in front of me. And I was like, all right, I get it. This guy's the real deal. Every once in a while, those really big prospects that come through the minor leagues, everybody's like, oh man, he's the one. His player comp is Mike Trout. And I was like, all right, guys, you can't compare anybody to Mike Trout. And then I saw him throw from the outfield. I saw him run. I saw him hit. And I was like, this guy's like the next Mike Trout. That's pretty accurate.
What's funny, though, Kenny, is he talked about that story and said the same thing about YouTube at the locker room chat. And the little kid comes up to him afterwards thinking he's going to, and he asked him, what's the video again?
He's like, can you show me this? I was like, yeah, man, I'll look it up. Give me a second. I got to find it, but I'll show it to you.
I love it.
And then he just didn't really say anything. He just kind of looked at me and gave me a high five. I was like, no one's giving me a high five for that yet, so I'll take it.
There you go.
First one.
I love it.
That's awesome. Well, talking about adversity, Kenny, you've always been through a lot of it. You talk about your injury and then COVID with the football into it, but you're still really kind of going through. You just lost your grandfather, a few weeks ago, and
that's my OG, because I didn't know my dad's mother passed away when he was 15, and he didn't know his father. He had a stepfather who passed away way before I was even thought of. So my only grandfather was my mom's parents, and I'm the oldest grandchild on my mother's side, and they were from New York, so there was a lot of distance between New York and North Carolina, of course, but when I wasn't playing summer baseball when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in New York, so that was my OG, man.
Right.
That's where I got my swag from. Mm-hmm. You see my pictures with all my Federa hats and whatever. I got that from him. So it was a hard thing losing him a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, and you're still kind of going through a divorce. So you're kind of going through all kinds of stuff right now. So just share a little bit about what adversity has, I guess, taught you.
Absolutely. It goes back to what you were saying, man. You want to tell God your plans. You want to hear God laugh telling your plans. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not big on divorce. Divorce is not an option for me, but sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles, Mm-hmm. And like I said, she and I honestly are actually like better. We're like better for each other as best friends. And that was my best friend before. And again, man, we got married when I was 23. You know what I mean? And she was 30. She was just getting out of her first marriage, and I'm still a young buck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I had a lot of growing to do within that marriage. So, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it was just her fault or point the blame. And I had a lot of learning to do. I had a lot of growing to do of getting married at such a young age. And again, she had 3 kids from her first marriage. So I'm playing bonus dad to a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 13-year-old at the age of 23. So, I had to learn how to, grow up extremely quick, be a man that way. Like I said, we had our baby girl. She's 7 now.
Okay.
We had her in 2017. Excuse me. You know, we had a business together, you know, that's extremely successful. And like I said, man, we just started to become two different totally people. I wanted certain things. She wanted certain things, and we just couldn't get it right. You know what I mean? And I can honestly say too, and a big advice for you, man, especially getting married, just make sure God is at the center of your marriage. Because once you,
absolutely.
And that's what I learned now. Once you stray away from keeping him in the front of your marriage, you know, that's where, you know, the devil come in and start throwing any type of adversity. And I always used to hear her say, I used to always worship her as my God. Cause I used to, man, you know, Brian, man, that was my love. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody, even Stevie Wonder could see that. Yeah. You know, Stevie Wonder could see, man. That was, you know what I mean? Sorry, Stevie.
That took me by surprise.
Sorry, Stevie. But I'm just saying, like, everybody could see that. You know what I mean? That was truly like, that was my best friend right there, man. And, you know, like I said, just to finally get to that point where we having this conversation where it's like, okay, we can't get it right. You know what I mean? It was very detrimental to my mental for a while. She was just like, look, man, we're going to be best friends. We're always going to be in each other's lives. I wasn't trying to hear that at first. But again, the adversity that we all been through, whatever, it allowed me to mature and to see that. And as well, the kids are now seeing a more healthy interaction between us. So like I said, I mean, I'm always over there. You know what I mean? That's my homie. You know what I'm saying? And
y'all aren't sitting here talking behind each other's backs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, she definitely wants me to, I mean, she even told our 7-year-old the other day, she was like, cause like I said, I have her full time. And she was like, Savannah, don't you think you need to let your dad live his life a little bit? Cause it's always she and I. She was like, let your dad find love again. You know, I want your dad to be happy. Don't you want your dad to be happy? She was like, yeah, I do. So, you know, make a long story short now, once I heard that and she gave my daughter that briefing and I heard my daughter's voice, she was like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with it. So, you know, now I'm out there on the limb now, you know, met somebody, you know what I mean? So, it's a beautiful thing, man. But like I said, just adversity. I love it. I feel like you have to embrace it. You have to embrace adversity. And if anything, you talk about adversity, man, I always look at my father. And like I say, even my dad's, my mother's dad, you know, being an African-American, owning a business in Brooklyn at that where he was at, it was a hard thing. He had 7 cleaners in Brooklyn back in the day, you know, going through, you know, the segregation times and everything. And, you know, the lack of equality, man, it was a very, you know, very rough thing for him. I didn't hear too much about it. More so, I heard a lot about my dad's upbringing. You know, my dad, like I said, my dad not knowing his father, losing, he's the baby of my aunts and uncles, you know, being in the room, seeing my grandmother, you know, flat out on the floor, like passed away. He witnessed that. My oldest uncle, who I never got to meet, my Uncle Harold, he was the oldest. And he's actually my motivation for baseball. He got drafted to play for the Athletics. As a catcher. But what happened was, I think my dad was telling me that my uncle's female at the time had my uncle shot up and killed, so he never got to go play. And my dad was a kid and was in the other room and witnessed everything happen. You know, my dad told me stories about how, you know, I said, we from a small countryside, so there's a lot of country where I'm from. So there was a couple of prisoners that basically broke out of prison, and they came to my dad's house at the time when my grandmother was still living, and basically broke into the house, had them like hostage and everything.
Wow.
So where my dad and uncles used to have to like eat rabbits and birds and stuff to like kind of survive. And what happened was when they tried to find to make their move, they tried to steal my dad's stepfather's truck, and it stormed extremely bad and was a dirt road. So the truck ended up getting stuck. So that's when the law enforcement finally found them and everything. So my dad had colon cancer in 2005. My dad's fought in 2 wars. You know what I mean? He's been through PTSD. I mean, I even witnessed my mom literally packed up me and her stuff because my dad's PTSD and the medications that the military had him on was so bad to where she was about to leave. So just seeing my dad just go through all the adversity as a man, you know, and just I always used to hear him say, I didn't name you after me for nothing. You know what I mean? Sometimes I wish I didn't name you after me because you wouldn't be going through adversity. So he feels like it's a curse that he named me after him. So just seeing him going through all the adversity that he went through as a man, just kind of was like, you know what? Look at my dad now. You know, he's went through everything. He's 65 years old, looking like he's still in his 50s. You know what I mean? He's gotten every car he wants now. You know, him and my mother are doing good. He's got some grandkids. And it's like, man, everything that my dad go through, look at the character that he is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like for me, the adversity that I've been through from being hurt, you know, going through divorce right now, being married so young.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole different story.
Right.
Yeah.
Being married so young, taking care
Yep.
of somebody else's kids
Mm-hmm.
that's not yours, and you're dealing with the bitter father that's still in the picture. You know what I mean? That's a lot
At that age.
yeah, that's a lot for somebody at 23, 24 years old. So like I said, I feel like adversity is a great character building, and it built the character that I am now. And that's why I walk with my chest out, not because of what I did, not because of what I played, but I walk with my chest out just because of the fact that the adversity that I faced, and I know that God's brought me through all of that. So it's like when somebody try to judge me as a character or try to, you know, judge my character, it's like, you can't tell me nothing about being a man because you don't know what I've been through.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, we'll come back in a second. I am going to mention though, March 21st. Need to get you, well, both of you there, but we're hosting a first annual America's Hometown Heroes Expo in Ackworth, and it's for veteran-owned, first responder-owned businesses, and a portion of the proceeds are going to the Outer Circle Foundation, which is a nonprofit based in Dallas, Georgia, that works with veterans and first responders on PTSD and suicide prevention. And the gentleman that runs it, Matt Payne, Matt and Buffy, you're welcome. Shout out for you. He's a 16-year Air Force vet, combat specialist, as well as a retired police chief out of New Jersey. So, and he suffered. So we're going to come back to this in just a second. So I got a couple of questions, and there's a lot to talk about. We don't have time, but I do want to ask a couple of questions for you. So Nathan, I'm going to come to you for a second. Share a little bit of the experience on what it's like, the differences, I guess you would say. I wanted to ask you this at the locker room chat, but we didn't get to it. I might ask this year, but can you share a difference of the experience of a difference between traveling around the minors in America and then playing pro in Mexico? What kind of share a little bit about that difference?
Yeah, it was, well, first of all, the obvious difference is, I mean, the cultural difference between English and Spanish is one thing. And then the thing about the Mexican League is that there's teams like Tijuana, where I don't know if any of y'all have seen videos of the games in Tijuana, but they're called like the Yankees of the Mexican League because they make the most money, but they have like 6 mascots at every game.
Wow.
Like 4 are on the field in foul territory while the games are going on and pitches are being thrown and music is being played. It's just a totally different environment. But yeah, I mean, the traveling around I got very lucky that the only place I haven't played baseball in America is the Pacific Northwest. So, I mean, I've gotten to go to Big Sky country, Southern California, Northern California, Arizona, Texas, Southeast, obviously, played up in Maine and all that for the first year of college ball. And one of the summer college leagues I played in was the NECBL. So been very fortunate to travel a lot. But it's, in the minor leagues, it's still a kind of a hybrid in between like a you're on your own and like a college situation where it's very structured and everybody's telling you what you have to do all the time. And in Mexico, it's like, we're not going to tell you what to do. If you don't do it, you're just gone. I mean, and that's to an extent, that's kind of how it is in the minor leagues, but there's a little bit more of a safety net, like, hey, get it together. This is, I mean, don't be late, all that stuff. There's no warnings in Mexico. If you're late, you don't pitch well. I mean, I showed up. That was the only time in my career I've been released, and I deserved it. I wasn't pitching well at all. Wasn't throwing strikes. But they also have a certain amount of American-born players or foreign-born players that are allowed to be on the team. And there's not a whole lot of Mexican people that are 6'8". I'm not saying there's none, but it's less likely that there's any Hispanic heritage or Mexican heritage in me with my height. But you can only have so many, and so they're on an even shorter leash. Like if you're not performing, they got to get those spots filled with people that are, they know what they're doing. And I played with Addison Russell, Pablo Sandoval was on that team, Josh Reddick, Carlos Martinez with the Cardinals. I mean, it was a big names on the team, which I wasn't expecting when I went down there. And even there was a guy, you remember the guy for the Athletics that took the knee during the national anthem, the first one? Yeah. He's down there.
Okay.
That dude is big. He's like your height. He's maybe 290. Ooh. He has the biggest hands I've ever seen. This dude, I mean, physical specimen. Anyways, I'm getting off track. But yeah, I mean, the traveling is a lot different. I mean, it's still bus rides, really. I mean, you get to AAA, then you start flying just because the leagues are so big. But the bus rides are in the minor leagues and in the Mexican League. But I'm trying not to get myself in trouble here, but the precautions and the parameters on which the trainer what the trainer adheres to, what he is allowed to and not allowed to do is different, I'll say, in Mexico versus the minor leagues. And that was a bit of an eye opener, even, as little as I was down there. I mean, again, it's a little bit of kind of a downhill flow from just being Mexico versus the United States. I mean, you can get Xanax and a bunch of different pills just from the pharmacies down there. I mean, they're over the counter. So there's just a lot of what seems like a big deal in America is not in Mexico. But I would say 90% of it was just a cultural difference, and it was a bit of a shock. I mean, I speak enough Spanish to get by, to tell people I'm learning, and that I can hold a conversation. I was just fine down there, but it was still a cultural shock, even though I was kind of expecting it. But
what was the locker rooms like different? I'm sure even in the minor leagues.
Yeah, they were. I mean, there's a lot of cards, which is in the minor leagues too. There's a lot of similarities. But it was a little bit different just because, I mean, I would never been in a locker room with that many big names in the big leagues. I mean, there was 3 World Series champions in that locker at any point. Obviously Pablo Sandoval, Kung Fu Panda being the big one. But the amount of talent that was in the room, I just feel like there was a lot more in-depth conversations when locker room conversations, they're very rarely about baseball or the sport you're playing. But I feel like there was a lot more intentional and very fine-tuned things to pick up from the baseball side was the biggest difference. Just because, I mean, a locker room, you're sitting around changing, waiting around for BP or for the game to start. So there's only so many things you can do when you're waiting around like that. But yeah, I would say the actual sports conversations were lots of nuggets to be picked up from guys like that for sure.
Kenny, you shared a little bit, but let me ask you, what's it like, the difference between going from baseball and playing arena football?
Very curious there.
Oh man. It's very different. Very different. Again, for me with arena football, it's more physical. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, it's because like I said, I play DN, defensive end. So it's like, and in an arena ball, the offensive linemen are like 6'8", 6'9", 400 pound plus.
That's not as big of a field. I feel like you don't got to move. They don't got to move as much.
Right. And that's the thing too. It's different from outside football, because with outside football, the defensive end, he can have time to do 6, 7, 8 moves. You know what I mean? To try to get around that offensive lineman. And in arena ball, you got like 2.5 seconds. Literally, because it's a 50-yard field. You know what I mean? So you got literally 2.5 seconds. So if you're not at least have your foot, you know what I mean, past that offensive lineman foot as you about to cut that corner within at least 1.5, 2 seconds, that's it. Because the pocket collapsed so quickly. You know what I mean? And again, that was just different, especially with arena ball, because now, you're playing on turf. But the turf that I played in baseball is different from this type of turf that you're playing on arena ball. The fans, everything's closer to you. You know what I mean? If you ever been to a hockey game or whatever, it's kind of like that, except for there's no guard. Right. There's no, whatever, the clear thing right there, right? So arena ball, like when you hit somebody into the wall, you know what I mean? You got fans literally like patting you on top of the head, like hitting you on the helmet because they're so into it. And I didn't realize how many arena football fans there are in this world, like in the United States. I mean, for instance, we're playing against the Jacksonville Sharks. Okay, what else in Jacksonville is there? Jacksonville Jaguars. So at that time, like I said, my ex-wife, she was sitting in the stands, and she sat beside a guy who said that they have season tickets for the Jacksonville Sharks. They don't give a rat's behind about the Jaguars.
I mean, that's the Jaguars.
Right. No offense to the Jaguars.
No, but that's a good example.
But it's like they care more about the Jacksonville Sharks. And like I said, the environment, the music during the games, like I said, just the crowd engagement, the player engagement with the crowds, how fun it is, and just learning the rules of arena football. Like I said, there's 3 linemen, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. Right. And the reason why the scoring is so high, it's really a receiver DB game, because you got that you got that one receiver in motion, and that's when the quarterback hikes the ball. Once that receiver hits that line of scrimmage, that's when the quarterback hikes the ball. You know what I mean? So now you got that receiver, it's 1-on-1, and if you're not a good defensive back, you're not a good defensive player, you're going to get schooled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel like that timing makes a difference too. Like since you can kind of time as a defensive player, you can kind of time that receiver because if you jump when he's about to cross the line, either he's offsides, he's going to beat you. So I feel like that's a different
what
strategy.
helped me, honestly, was being a baseball player, the hand-eye coordination.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Seeing 90-something plus miles an hour. You know what I mean? Being able to hit that. Not all the time, but, being able to touch
Getting ready to hit it
right.
is the whole thing.
So it's kind of like, and my trainer, who I was training when I was living in Loganville, his name is George Herring. Shout out to Body by George. He's the one who actually encouraged me to do football. He went to Auburn and he played with Bo Jackson at Auburn. So, George encouraged me to do football.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, Kenny, you got to understand, man, when a defensive guy that big shoots his hand out at you, and you're so used to reacting to a 90-plus mile an hour fastball, like your fast twitch muscles are going to like help you in this game.
Yeah, you didn't realize that you've been training him the whole time you've been playing baseball. Yeah.
Right. So it's like now when I'm training, even when I was in Tampa and I'm training, right, and then when I actually see the offensive lineman shoot his hands out at me, now I'm learning the swim moves, whatever. But with my hand and eye coordination and the twitching, the fast twitch, man, it's like, oh man, this ain't nothing.
Yeah,
really.
That learning curve is this big,
right? Oh, you about to shoot them? Cool, thank you. You know what I mean? It was different. But I wanted to pig you too when you say you played in Mexico. By me being in Dominican Republic, oh my gosh,
different.
So that's another reason why Vogasong and I are real tight because he played in Venezuela.
Oh,
and right, see, just your reaction.
You're not supposed to be playing down there,
right? He was like, he said, Kenny, the fact that you played in DR is like it's very therapeutic to me because I can't talk to anybody about playing in Venezuela. They don't get it. Yeah. And like he said, man. Oh, shoot, man. Like I said, of course, I'm older than you. So this was 2011, 2012 when I was down there. So the mascots, you know what I mean? The cheerleaders on top of the dugouts. And that was so hard for me being 20, 21 years old, finding out we can't talk to the cheerleaders. And I'm looking at each other like, what? What do you mean we can't talk to them? Yeah, you talk to them if you want to. You might have a finger missing. You know what I mean? Like you said, the structure.
On the top of the dugout, like, oh,
yeah.
Like, literally,
like they're literally like, and again, like I went to a HBCU, North Carolina A&T. So you probably seen me post it. Like GHO stands for Greatest Homecoming on Earth. That's our hashtag. Okay. So it was literally like a black college homecoming every single game. So when you haven't, and again, when I played Winter League there too for let's say Tigres, and that's in Santo Domingo. That's the capital. Yeah. So I'm playing with that's Hanley Ramirez, Miguel Tejada.
A lot of the big names that are Dominican, they'll play down there year round.
They'll play down here year round, and that's what I loved about it. That's why I tell people, if you can play over there and keep up with them, man, you can come over to the States and kill because it's a lot of big name players who just love DR so much. They don't care about coming to America. You know what I mean? And like you said, being able to get stuff right over the counter that easy over there, the structure, if you're on your own type thing, it was a very different. And shoot, I faced Aroldis Chapman over there. I didn't say I was successful. I just said I faced
you heard
him.
me talk about Acuna.
Like literally, I get over there, and that's before he was a big guy. He was big in who he was. And basketball is big in Dominican Republic, too, especially in Santiago. Because Santiago and Santo Domingo are two capitals and whatever. So Santiago, their basketball is real big. So I'm seeing Chapman. At the time I got there, and we're in this regular random field with goats in the outfield. I play center field, so there's goats in the outfield. Okay, we're at this, and this is before the season began. They got us, especially the American players, they got us used to it, right? Used to the culture. So we was playing pickup baseball. You know, like pickup basketball. It's pickup baseball, but they always had 3 umpires. It could have no fence, nothing, whatever, but there was always 3 umpires, and you always saw kids laughing.
That's better than most minor league crews.
Right, you know what I mean?
Well, the goats were the field crew. I mean, come on.
Right.
Still better than most umpire crews.
So, and the thing is, when we get there, you have these little kids practicing, training, whatever, and I tell you, striking out was very embarrassing because once you strike out, you got these kids laughing at you as you walk back to the dugout.
I remember you the next time you come up.
And they remember you the next time because they're like, man, we can do this. And we're 8 years old, 15 years old.
And they're probably right,
and
too, honestly.
Right. And so I just remember, man, I get there. This is my very first day. And his name was Pierre DeVars. He picked me up from the airport. And I was like, man, you got some Gatorade or something? I'm thirsty. I just came from North Carolina, man. And you're like, I got you, Poppy. I got you. And then it was a culture shock because I didn't know everything was pesos, right? So when we stop at the gas station, this man is
40
filling
pesos.
Yeah, the guy's filling up the limo, and it's like $175, right? And I didn't know it was pesos. So I'm looking, I'm like, what is this? And then I'm watching the speedometer go. I didn't know it was in kilometers.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, do y'all not see this man going 130 miles an hour? I'm sitting in the back like, and everybody just,
Man, this thing's smooth going 130.
and I'm kind of nervous. So when we get to the field, man, and Chapman is standing off to the side, he just in some shorts and a shirt. I'm like, man, he play basketball. He gotta be, right? So they was like, Kenny, you gonna lead off, man. You're not playing the field. You're gonna lead off today. And I'm like, all right, cool. So mind you, I haven't met all the team. Mind you, right? So they just got me from that workout. So it's a lot of American players. I'm introducing myself, talking to the Dominican guys, speak no Spanish at this time. So I'm, okay, right?
Okay.
So next thing you know, man, I'm leading off. I got my back turned towards the dugout, just talking, whatever. And then I hear, pow. I turn around. I'm like, what the hell? I turn around. It's Chapman on the mound now in baseball clothing.
Yeah, he's got that big turn in his whole body.
Yes,
kind
Lord.
Of thing.
And mind you, this is before it was extremely developed, right? So just imagine how wild and scarier it was looking then. So I get up there, and the very first pitch, I see it, and I don't see it. By the time I got myself set, the ball was already in the mitt. And I was like, okay, but it was a ball. He did the next three like that. I was like, okay. So I got 3-0 count, right? I'm like, all right, here we go. He threw the same exact pitches right down the pipe. The next 3-1, I swung and missed, struck out.
Wow.
And I was like,
different.
Yeah, man, it's
Right.
a different ball game.
Well, and like you
in
said,
these
most
Latin-
people are like, oh, you go into the Dominican in the off season, you just need to get some work in. And it's like, no, you get paid pretty well down there, and there's really good competition. Because I know pools for a long time would go down there. I mean, again, guys from the Dominican would just in the off season,
Right.
They don't like to take time off. They play baseball because they love the sport, and so when everybody sends them home, they're like, all right, we're gonna go play more baseball. So even doesn't matter if you're big leaguer, World Series champion, minor leaguer, everybody, if you're there, that's why they have those pickup games.
And they take it serious because you represent where you're from. So just to be from an American descent, and I'm playing for, let's say, Tigres, and that's where Vladimir Guerrero, and I mean, that's Sammy Sosa, Manny Ramirez, that's a big thing over there.
Right. And the loyalty and the country loyalty is way different than it is in America.
Right.
Doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're Mexican born, Dominican born, it's patriotism.
Right.
Yeah, it's different than it is here.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on all day. I do a couple of questions for you because I'm seriously acting, but I know
Sorry,
you guys.
I know we're going on tangents. I'm doing the same thing.
I know you guys got to go somewhere.
That's okay.
But I do want to ask this. Well, it's going to wind up being 2 questions, and then we got 3 more after that. And we'll try to make this quick. The sport of the business of sport. Let's be honest, it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
Absolutely.
I'm curious on you guys' takes, being former college athletes, former pro athletes. To me, the college game has gotten ruined. I'm not necessarily thinking the NIL, but the transfer portal. Now, football, obviously you didn't play the college football, but I still could see it. You got these teams that went to the bowl games. These guys started transferring in and out. What are your guys' take on the NIL and the transfer portal? And NIL now in the state of Georgia, the high school athletes get it, which to me is just insane. So, Kenny, what about you? What's your initial thoughts on them?
Honestly, man, I'm on both fences, both sides. Because for one, think about it. If you are a player who's playing at these Power 5 schools, you know what I mean, and you're extremely successful,
You generate a lot of money.
a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Especially in football, basketball, baseball.
Right.
Sports,
Especially if your jersey is been sold in stores, you know what I mean? And then you have nothing. Like, you can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? And you still sitting here eating
from it.
oodles and noodles, right? And you're sitting here generating all of this. Like, I feel that. You know what I mean? Because, and then also, even if you do have some type of conversation or sign something for somebody, now it's kind of like it can be detrimental to your career as a college athlete and also going to the next level. And then on the other side of it, now it's kind of like, you think about it, the girl that plays for LSU. Reese, right?
Yeah, Reese.
Like, if she doesn't go to the NBA from a financial standpoint, it's not really going to bother her. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like, too, that can start killing the passion and the drive and the heart and the grit of an athlete. to really take the game serious. And one thing I tell my travel ball kids that I coach, like, I'm not going to allow you to disrespect the game that I love so much, and really that took care of my family for a while. And I busted my hind and went through adversity to get to. But now it's like, you're saying at the high school level, and like now it's like these kids, they just gonna go for the money. And
that's
I just
the thing. They've taken the passion away, and like you said, and the love of the game is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that.
There's no incentive for it,
right.
At least. And it's like, oh, all right, I'm good at this. All right, I'll go be good in college and make millions of dollars, and who cares if I go pro?
Well, and you talk about, I mean, Michaela Williams, the quarterback at USC, has come out and said, now, first of all, to me, he's not that good of a quarterback. He's proved that this year.
Well, he spoke too soon.
Yes. But he's demanded that whoever drafts him, he becomes part owner.
And then
I'm
lost
sorry.
4 games after that.
Exactly.
But either way.
Right. Nathan, what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, I'm sitting here shaking my head a bunch. I agree. I think there's a way to do it, and I'm on both sides of the fence. I mean, yes, beforehand, being a college athlete, I mean, it'd be easy for me to be like, it'd be nice if the NIL was there when I was in school. But again, I wasn't a huge enough prospect, and I wasn't at a big power conference where I would have gotten anything different, really. But for the people that high school is way too soon.
Right.
That's ridiculous in my opinion. But I mean, in college, like you said, once you get to college, there's no incentive to try to go to the next level because you're getting paid just fine if you're a good enough athlete at a big conference, big school in a decent sport here. So why not stay for 4 years and get paid? Because it's safer than to take a risk after the first year, even if that's statistically and, in the past, if that would be the best time for you to leave, let's say football after your freshman year. Now, why not stay 4 years? Because, there's some money that's guaranteed, but you might get injured. You never know. I mean, even before the end of the season, something could happen. So it's guaranteed. It's almost like that's great to get to the point where you can sign a contract that gives you guaranteed money in the sport, but you get guaranteed money in college now. So it's really taking away from the incentive, like you said, to grind and to push to the next level. But I do think there's some compensation. I think there's a middle ground. I don't think millions of dollars in these. And I think it'll all sort itself out. I think it'll kind of, just like most things do, it'll kind of settle somewhere in the middle. But they do need to be compensated, especially at the big schools where they are making the school money, the institution money, which is most of the conversations we're having. But I don't think immediately allowing them to sign all kinds of endorsement deals and make millions of dollars is the answer. I think there's a way to do it, but again, it'll sort itself out.
And I do agree that, obviously if they're making the school money, they should get some, but most of these kids are getting the full ride. They're getting the scholarship. They're getting paid to the school. They're getting the meals paid, the books and all that. But you add now that on top of it. And again, you're just diluting what. So
I agree.
Let's touch just real quick on the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't really have that big of an issue with it. I think kind of the same thing. There's pros and cons to it, but with guys like Dabo Swinney that refuse to use it, I'm like, hey, whether you agree with it or not is one thing, but you're shooting yourself in the foot by not using it. And I get it if it's for a moral or, you don't agree with it and you're protesting it, for the lack of a better phrase. If that's why you're doing it, then that's fine. But don't sit here and complain about not getting good players. And that's the reason, because you have the tool just like everybody else. It's whether you agree with it or not, again, whole nother thing, but everybody can use it. So.
And I see where I think it's detrimental more to football than some of the other sports. What about you, Kenny?
I feel the same as that way. For me, I see a lot of players too. Some of them do it from a spoiled standpoint. Because
they don't play like they thought they were going to play.
Right, because, and you know what I mean? And I hear a lot of talks about baseball, not just because I'm in travel baseball, and which is a whole nother different ball game, but I hear it a lot now, where, even coaching travel ball right now, you got these kids, man, who've been praised so much coming up from like a young age to up into, high school, whatever. And then it's almost kind of like, they get recruited to the school and now things aren't going their way. Not even because of the program is not good, maybe just because they're facing adversity. And instead of them, putting 10 toes down and really like owning and embracing that adversity, they feel like, okay, hey, look, well, I struggled here for whatever reason. So now I'm going to go transfer to another program because I feel like that program is going to, stroke that ego.
Well, and then the coaches that they're going to transfer to are telling them the same thing that the coach they were at. I could not agree with what you said.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's, like I said, I'm on the fence with that as well. Like for if you're really not getting what you think you feel like you need out of it as an athlete at that program, then I get it. You know what I mean? But then like, again, then you got some players, man, they're trying to chase a ring. They're trying to chase a stat. And again, I go back to travel baseball. You got parents who will be, like, not to call a parent, I got a parent who called me the other day and was like, hey, because I coach the A teams with the Bombers, so that's the best teams. And I had a parent call me and say, hey, man, I know my player may not play on your team, but I want him to play on your team, just to say he played on the A team. And it's like, but your son is starting every single day with the B team, and we're playing in the same competition. We're playing in the same tournaments. So are you more concerned about the name, or are you more concerned about the development part for your son? And I see that in the transfer portal too. I see a lot of players now is like, okay, for instance, Coach Prime, when Coach Prime left Jackson State, how many players go to the transfer portal when he went to Colorado? Right. And then, they started off good, but then look what happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's.
Well, you talked about the parents. My dad, when I was really young, he was an umpire for, this was Little League, Little League. And he lasted one season and he stopped because of the parents.
That's why I coached 2 weekends, coached a travel team, 9th inning down in Chamblee. I coached 2 weekends in the fall, and I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
crazy.
you absolutely agree with you saying that travel has put this thought into whether it's the kids or the parents, like, okay, well, if I'm not playing and I want to play, I can just go to a different team until I find one that'll let me play.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to do in the transfer portal is like, well, people have been telling me since I'm 7 that I'm the best. So why would I not be? And every time I've heard a kid say that, I was like, you know what? Chase Smith, best player, was recruited by every school in Georgia, played at home plate where I played on the big name travel team when I was a freshman, sophomore, and I didn't play with him junior or senior year. Play with a different team that let me play both positions, and that was fine. But I was like, you know what Chase is doing now? And they're like, what? And I was like, I don't know. Didn't even know where he went to school. I don't even think he went to college. It's like what you do in your sophomore year or even most of the time in high school really in the grand scheme of things means nothing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Really doesn't mean anything. But
Absolutely.
I think putting a lot of the stress on succeeding and being on a big name team and being the shortstop or the center fielder, the leadoff, 3-hole, whatever. And I think a lot of that, them thinking that's the most important thing in travel ball and in high school, I think that's also going into college and the transfer portal, and to make like, well, I did it in school and it worked, or I did it in high school and it worked. Well, I'll transfer to USC now, and then I'll be a USC quarterback.
Yeah,
using that as an example.
College is a different grind, man. It's, you know what I mean? Like you say, even at pro ball, I was talking to a guy the other day, and it's like, okay, when you get to the pro level, especially as a position player, right? Like I said, I was a center fielder, so it's kind of like clearly you're a center fielder, you're good enough to be at this level. But there are other guys in the same organization as you that plays the same position. So now the thing is, okay, you're a center fielder for the San Francisco Giants, right? You're in the center fielder for the San Francisco Giants organization, but now what are you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Are there a lot of center fielders in front of you? Are there less right fielders? Is maybe moving to right since you have a good arm? Maybe is that a quicker path?
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of
what
stuff.
separates you now? Oh, you run a 6'5", he runs a 6'5". Right? You hit 20 bombs, he hits 20 bombs. You know what I'm saying? What makes you different?
Well, now you got the universal DH. That's a whole other topic we won't get into.
Right.
I just think it needs to be even. Whatever it is, it's fine. Just do both. As a pitcher, DH.
Right.
Hey, look, I'm not going to lie. If I could DH and not worry about, because when I got hurt, they moved me to first base. Okay, hot corner. Come on now.
Right.
Like, if you could just be like, hey, man, just DH.
If it was just taking the throws and picking, I'd be great.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm great. You hit a big lefty hits a top spinner at me, I'm moving out of the way.
Think about Big Papi hitting you a hot shot at first base.
But Nathan, you're so tall, you could be able to get it.
Well, I'm so skinny, it's going to go right by me. I don't have any width, you know?
All right, real quick, because I know we're going to, again, I could talk all day. So, so I'd like for you guys, this is a 2-part question to give some advice. And I know I don't want to rush you on the advice, but if somebody's listening that either A, has a child playing sports, or B, that are wrapping up their career, whatever the case may be, it's a 2-part question. I'd like for you guys to give advice on dealing with, your mental health, because you guys go through a lot of, I mean, people, I don't think people realize athletes have a lot of mental health challenges, you know, because of the disappointments and whatever. But then also it give advice from transitioning from playing pro ball into getting back into society and doing a career. Yeah. So Nathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the mental side of things, it's have an outlet, whatever that is fine. But just remember that whatever sport you're playing, it's not the only thing in the world. I mean, I played multiple sports, which was great. I loved going and playing tennis and soccer and messing around and doing all kinds of things. So I never got burnt out on baseball. So I never, in high school at least, in college, I never really had that dreading it or really hitting a wall or really having that mental frustration. But there was plenty of that when I got to pro ball. And I think the biggest thing for me that helped me do that was, even then, there's 12 months of me, 18 months actually, of me going into a facility for a few hours in the morning and then going back to the same apartment with 3 other guys every night. And it's like, this is all I'm doing all day. I have to find something else to keep my mind off of it, or else all I'm going to sit there is this downward spiral of, I'm not healthy. Am I doing everything I can to get healthy? What if it doesn't work? And then your mind starts to go off on all these tangents that can really be detrimental and destructive, really, from a mental standpoint. And so I would say the one thing is have an outlet, whatever that is. It can be, another sport. It can be an art or a craft or playing video games, whatever, going and hanging out with people. That's fine. But you have to be able to disconnect from the sport you're playing and be able to not take yourself too seriously. And it actually ends up going a long way for the player. And as a parent, I guess, just understand that because of a lot of the advice that people are getting now is you got to start them young. You got to, like I said earlier, you got to play baseball young. Specializing is not that big of a deal as everybody says it is. The travel coaches and the high school coaches, they all say it. And even sometimes in college, the first thing that they said to me when I got to pro ball, we were taking PFPs on the mound, and I, fielded a bunt down the third baseline, planted my foot and threw the ghost runner, whatever you call it, out at first. And immediately one of the coaches looked at me and said, "You played more than one sport, didn't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I played basketball." And they're like, "Yeah, it's really obvious. We try to promote people playing more than one sport, that cross athleticism. It helps for whatever sport you're focusing on." But it's like I said, it's just all the parents and some of the travel coaches saying you got to focus on baseball. You don't have time for basketball. I mean, even when I was in high school, both of the sports were telling me I needed to quit the other one or else I wasn't going to have a future in it. And it hurts my heart to hear that, because the kid that really wants to play is the one that's starting to have all these negative thoughts. And it's like, maybe I'm putting pressure on myself that, I got to do really well because all of this stuff that my parents are doing for me and they want me to succeed. And it can be really, really destructive. So that's what I would say from a sports side of things. And then from getting into honestly, it's kind of the same advice from going from the pro sports world or the sports world into like I said, the real job. It's just after, I still have that competitive nature, and I like to compete, but I can get that other places. I play golf, I play men's league basketball sometimes. And so I have that outlet, but just remembering that the sport that you're playing is not the end of the world. There's other things out there, and there's other things that you need to go enjoy and invest your time in and completely disconnect from the sport you're playing. And to a bigger extent, it's harder to do after you retire. But I was very lucky that I had a very soft landing spot. Like I said, a house and a fiance, now wife, with a bunch of animals. And that was where my priorities were when I retired. So it wasn't as hard for me as I've heard that it can be for other people. But either way, I would say the best advice is just have somewhere to go, whether it's somewhere mentally or something to do that you can just disconnect and enjoy something. And it doesn't have to be all the stress and pressure of whatever sport it is you're trying to succeed at.
Kenny?
Yeah, man, I definitely agree. For me, I can also say, especially from a sports standpoint, an athlete, I had to get to a point where I had to realize, and my spiritual advisor helped me with this, the sport is not who you are, it's what you do. And like I said, I know we didn't get into it, but I was suicidal. Literally about to jump over 400 in Alpharetta, to where I was in Peachford Hospital for like 7 days by myself. Going through it by myself. And a lot of it came from my depression of being hurt with baseball, tried to get back into it. And then, when I said bump baseball and I did the arena football thing, I'm thinking that my life is back in order. You know what I mean? The money's coming in now.
You're back playing a sport.
I'm back playing a sport. Who the endorsements.
Love,
and, I had an Adidas sponsorship. So I got a lot of Adidas stuff. I had a Core Water sponsorship. Like, I thought I was a man again, right? Mm-hmm. And then when COVID happened, it kind of killed me. It killed my whole mood. And then it was very detrimental too, as me as a husband. So I had to get to a point where I felt like, for me, if I wasn't successful in sports, like, my life was over. But I had to understand sports is what I did. It's not who I am. Yeah. I'm a father at that time. I was a husband at that time. Like I said, a coach, a leader. And the biggest thing I can say is, for that person transition, you got to find your purpose. You know what I mean? And that's
not easy.
It's not
always easy.
Oh my gosh, no. And that's why I stay grounded in my faith. You know what I mean? Like I'm a real strong man of God. You know what I'm saying? And I really take that seriously. Because again, you're not going to find your purpose unless you have him, like really seeking him and doing that. And once I got that comfort into finding my purpose, and my spiritual advisor said, you know, I don't know when or where, how, but you're going to come back to the game of baseball. He was like I said, I threw everything away for baseball. I didn't want to talk about it. I mean, my cousin is Jackie Bradley Jr. Right? Like literally. I mean, they was playing in the World Series. My dad was like, hey man, you talked to little Jackie today? I'm like, yeah, I talked to him on Facebook and we talked on the phone, but we didn't talk about baseball. You know what I mean?
Because he probably knows.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And me and Jackie's not playing anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, he reached out to me like, yo, what, you know, I need some help. He's a family man too, but it's like, I didn't talk about baseball anymore. Don't talk to me about it. If you wanted to talk baseball, I would be so irritated. Like, leave me alone about baseball. And my dad, I had to stop answering my dad's calls during the World Series when Jackie was playing. I was like, Dad, I don't want to talk about baseball.
Just can't do it.
You're right. So, but my spiritual advisor, his name's Pastor Mojo, shout out to him. He was just like, look, Kenny, you're going back to baseball, whether it's to play or whether it's to coach. He said, but God is going to bring you back to there because there are so many other people that you can touch, you know what I mean, with that sport, with that platform. So I feel like now that's why I'm coaching now, and I'm so passionate about coaching, and that's why I want to go to the next level at the pro level, because I feel like the message that I have, a 13, 14-year-old kid can't relate to the message that I have right now. I feel like the collegiate level players and the pro level players can connect to my message because, for one, I got married young. You know what I'm saying? I'm a father. Some of these guys are fathers now already. And my goal now is to build strong men outside of the game of baseball. So I feel like, you know, once you really tap into what your purpose is, and that's with anybody, not even just an athlete, that's just anybody who's facing something now. Sometimes once you tap into your purpose, the money is not, it might not be a lot of money. Right. But at the end of the day, you're getting that fulfillment that you're tapping into what your assignment is while you're here on this earth. And once you tap into that, man, it don't matter if you make $1 million or $10 an hour. You know what I mean? That once you realize your purpose is, that's what's going to take over the happiness and just make you be extremely happy.
I'm living that myself right now.
Right. So, you know what I mean?
I'm just starting to, I know exactly what you mean.
And then, like I said, from the parent aspect, man, let kids be kids. Like literally, like my daughter, she's 7 years old, and everybody sees my daughter. Like, nothing against Natalie. Okay, Nat, we still cool. I love you. But Savannah has all of my athletic, right? Natalie has not one athletic attribute on her body. She'll tell you. But the business, oh yeah, she's top notch in business. And Savannah got that from her. But the athleticism, Savannah has it from me. So she's in gymnastics, she's in soccer, right? She's in dance. You know what I mean? So, and I'm want to put her in track because her gait is just so amazing when she runs. So it's kind of like, I remember I had her in dance, and then I did gymnastics with her last year. And mind you, she goes to school in Johns Creek. So Mondays and Wednesdays was dance in Roswell from 4 to 5:30. And she's in aerial as well. And she's the only kid under the age of 10 in aerial. So where they use the silks and they climbing up the silks and flipping and everything. That's what she does. She does that too. And in gymnastics, right. And then in gymnastics, I went literally one day for the first time ever. And the owner of the gym is Biogymnastics in Cumming. And he comes up to me, he says, hey, Coach Cameron wants to look at your daughter. And I was like, wait, why? What's going on? He was like, she wants to see her. I was like, why? What happened? And I was like, did I sign her up for the wrong class? He said, no. He said, have your daughter been doing gymnastics before? And I was like, no. He was like, well, we want to look at her. So Coach Cameron, she looks at Savannah for an extra 30 minutes, and she comes, she said, hey, we want to put Savannah in Mighty Mice. I said, what is Mighty Mice? She said, well, it's like an intro to real gymnastic competition and whatever. And she was like, and once she passes that, we'll give her a test and we'll start moving her to level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever. And so basically I'm like, okay, how much is it going to run me? I was like, bump it. Okay, let's do it. So basically, make a long story short, Savannah was in Mighty Mice for like 4 months. And then January of last year, they did her evaluation. They moved her up to level 1. Then literally after level 1, 3 months later, they moved her up to level 2. And her test for her to go to level 2 was to have the rope, right? All the way up to the ceiling. And she made it up the rope in 6.5 seconds back down. right? And so basically they moved her to level 2. But what it was, I had to realize when I say let kids be kids, Savannah gets out of school at 3:00, right? From Johns Creek, Valley Christian Academy, Johns Creek. And then it's like a 30-minute commute to gymnastics. So my baby girl was only 5-6 years old. She didn't have time to rest, right? And then now they're doing all this ab work, these fish holes and stuff. And baby girl just came to me crying one day. She's like, Dad, I'm tired. I can't do it anymore. And I say, you know what? You're only 6 years old. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
It's way too
I'm gonna let
soon
you be
to
a kid.
Right.
I'm gonna let you be a kid. So I say that. So now she wants to get back in gymnastics, right? And now that I met my new lady, Sarah, she's like said, played pro soccer before. She's big into soccer and she's a physical therapist now. So Savannah is so motivated to get back into soccer and she wants to get back into gymnastics. But when I say let kids be a kid right now at this age, just let them be kids.
Yeah, if you hadn't done that, there's a good chance she'd be like, whenever you finally let me stop, I'm not going back to it.
Right. And so it's like I had to recognize that. So like I said, the parents, man, especially with these travel ball kids, you know, man, I be in the baseball facility. I see these parents, man, with their 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids and they, you know, just drilling them. I'm just like, man, you're literally going to be the reason why your child does not want to play a sport ever again. Because you're trying to live vicariously through them, man. Right. So yeah, that's my advice.
So real quick, you guys obviously are doing something now. You talked about you're doing the coaching and the training.
Yeah.
You said high school age, right?
Yes. Yes.
So if somebody's listening, first of all, where can they get a hold of you and how, if they want to talk to you about training?
Oh yeah. So they can definitely go on Instagram if they do have Instagram, and it's at Kenny Graham Jr. Nothing spectacular. Of course, you know, my Facebook is Kenny, KJ Graham Jr. because KJ is my nickname. And you know, that's it. Twitter was big when I was in college back in like 07 to 11. So I'm just now getting back on that because now with me coaching, I'm starting to hear from other travel ball coaches who've been in the game for a while that a lot of the scouts and a lot of the collegiate scouts and everything, there's a couple of, platforms, that's big on Twitter. And if you hashtag those platforms and things, these coaches go right to that now. Mm-hmm. Like you don't need, you know what I'm saying? They just do that.
Just search the hashtag.
Yeah, they just search the hashtag. So, but definitely Instagram and Facebook, like I say, it's just at Kenny Graham Jr. I've actually had a couple of parents, reach out to me via Instagram, just because of the content that I coach about me, you know, that I post about my coaching. Like I said, I'm very authentic. So if you go on my social media, you're going to see myself and my daughter, and then you're going to see me having fun, being passionate about the coaching thing. So,
and what facility are you at?
I'm at Grand Slam facility in Johns Creek. So, we used to be the Georgia Bombers, but we merged with a company called ZT, which is real big out there on the West Coast now. So now we're the ZT Bombers. So we have, you know, 2 17U teams, 16U, 15U, 14U, 3 13U teams because they have a Southeast team now, all the way down to 8U. And then I'm also the head coach for the Black Cobras, 18U team. And Black Cobras actually a guy named Willie who named himself Black Cobra. He's a very big media content guy.
Oh, that's big.
I mean, he shoots, he's YouTube. I mean, he's on a couple of teams now that are on contract, but every single kid in high school in the state of Georgia, especially in the area who was trying to be somebody or some type of content, they utilize him. He goes down to the 17U tournaments in Florida and West Palm and stuff. He's real big, but he put an 18U team together. And then, of course, you know, I do collegiate summer league ball with the Brookhaven Bucks in the Sun Belt League. I coach with Corey Patterson.
All right.
Another MLB champion.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you definitely know that.
Yeah. He's about literally. I tower him, right? So it's hard to believe that he has so much power when he played. But yeah, so he's the head coach for the Brookhaven Bucks. We play out of Oglethorpe University, and then like I said, I'm the assistant coach.
Next time we talk to him, tell him to respond my text.
Oh, I got you. I got you, man. But yeah. That's where I'm at, man. Yeah.
All right. So Nathan, CMIT Solutions, Marietta. So obviously it's kind of in the name, but you guys do everything computers, right? As far as
the way,
share a little bit about that and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So our CMIT Solutions is a franchise. There's about 180 locations around the country, but ours is CMIT Solutions of Atlanta Northwest. We have a parent franchise that's down in Peachtree City, Noonan area. That's CMIT Solutions of Atlanta Southern Crescent. But I am not the technician that fixes the computers. I'm in sales and business development. So I just find the people that need their computers to be fixed. But the way I put it is anything that beeps or blinks, we take care of and protect and monitor and manage and all that kind of stuff. all the mobile devices, remote monitoring, the network and the data backup, the business continuity, all that good stuff. But on LinkedIn and I would say Facebook, if you search CMIT Solutions Atlanta Northwest, you can find us. Or cell phone is 770-584-0026. My mind was just about to say business card, but that's hard to do. But yeah, I mean, you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and anything technical related. We offer free assessments. So even any questions or anything like that, we don't charge you for. We just like to help as many people as we can. And our goal is to just, whether you become a client or not, just leave you in a better spot than you were when we found you. So,
you share your website too?
Yeah, it's just CMITsolutions.com, and then that'll take you to the franchise website, and you can find type in. I think it makes you type in your zip code, and then it'll direct you to the appropriate franchise, and that should be us.
All right. So as we wrap this up, I always like to end this with a positive word or quote, starting off the new year 2024 and beyond with. You already shared something earlier. You can share it again if you want to, but if you got something different, what kind of thing would you share?
The best, I don't even know if it really qualifies as a quote. It's too short, but my dad and my grandpa have told me for my whole life that everything is relative. And then just really talking about perspective. I mean, just like the story I shared about the kid from the Dominican that sent his whole check home. I mean, yeah, I thought it was a really tough situation that I was in. And then relative to his, it's really not that bad. So just keeping in mind that everything is relative is some of the best advice I've ever gotten. It took me a while to kind of realize exactly what that meant, but once it kind of clicked for me, that's the best advice I've gotten.
Kenny?
Yeah, for me, man, I take it, especially from a spiritual standpoint too. Especially what I've been hearing, growing up and even now, sometimes when you go through adversity, sometimes God will sit you down and knock you down to shake you up a little bit and get you back on track. So I can just tell people, man, just embrace adversity, and just be better in 2024. So, whatever happened last year before that, just learn from it, embrace it, and sometimes understand that, God got something better for you that nobody can see, not even you can see. And sometimes you're going through these type of things to literally for him to be like, look, I need you to start relying on me more. And once you do so, greater things can happen. And the last thing I could say, sometimes when you are trying to go different places, go better, you know what I mean? Sometimes in order to elevate, you got to separate. So, if there's a group of friends out there that you're with that's caused you not to elevate in what you're trying to do, sometimes you got to separate from there. Sometimes you got to separate from a relationship, or even separate from a job or whatever, that's stopping you from going to where you go. So that's all.
Right. Well, the last thing is the thank you is a lost art these days. So Nathan and Kenny, thank you for what you guys do in the community and being former professional athletes and just being regular human beings.
I was going to say the same thing. Thank you for doing what you do and being who you are, man.
Absolutely, man.
So everybody out there listening, let's remember, let's be positive, let's be charitable.